folks. Welcome to the ComicBase live stream. I am your host, Pete Bickford. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. Looks like my levels are okay, but for some reason, my headphones are really quiet today. But anyway, hey, welcome to the show. Thank you. I apologize for the dull, and I do mean super dull title of this show today. Covers, covers, covers. I could think of nothing better for it. It's just turns out that every single thing I wanted to talk about was about comic covers this week. Every problem we had, well, with the exception of some label issues, was about covers this week. And so, well, covers, covers, covers it is. So, anyway, that's about it. or, or as far as we could start placing bets on whether we start on time. Yeah, I'm going to say this is probably the tightest I have ever cut it with and still managed to hit the start time. So take that, people. Anyway, hi. Thank you very much to our mod Mr. Greg Hecht, who's in the house here and is at least gave me the 2 second thumbs up on the sound. Hopefully, he was not completely shining me on that one. But want to say hi to him. He's in the low 80s out here in South Jersey. Thunderstorms have been hitting everyone apparently. Scared the hell out of Dodger this morning. He was a wreck last night. But anyway, hopefully nothing will knock over anything in the background of the show. That would be a real improvement. I gotta say, after last time we went on the air here, it was kind of like after things are falling off the wall and shows are going down and stuttering and everything else. I'm thinking like, well, that was awfully rough, but, at least every other show I ever do for the rest of my natural life is likely to be better, so I've got that working for me. Anyway, we got that. Jet City Comics in the house, Robbie, from out here in Ohio, Toledo, people are apparently getting nice weather for once. This is nice. Mike Beam, Agent de Camp from Florida, which 87 and rainy. I guess that's some, late summer in Florida. And, PDX Hot 92. Wow. Rich Scott saying hi on that one. But yeah, Pacific Northwest 92. It's like enjoy summer. It's you got to get at least 1 or 2 days a year. All right. So anyway, let's get into it here. Like I say, I apologize for the lameness of the teaser, but on the other hand, Mark did a great job on the actual thumbnail art. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I want to be talking about, first of all, a little bit more about Cover Fund, how it works. I actually took the time to steal my wife's web camera to stick onto our demo machine. So if you want to see how a 1990s era webcam deals with this whole thing, that should be really exciting to demo with. But we actually have a input source both for the sound and vision on that one, distinct from the one I'm using to try to get to you guys on the live stream. Um, but we'll be talking about a little bit more about how the mechanics of that work. Strangely, I do want to take you behind the scenes a little bit and talk about how this whole cover thing moves through the system. We've got 1.23 million covers. I could almost say 1.25 million covers. But how do they get there? Why do which ones do we take? Which ones do we not take? What the heck is the deal with preliminary covers? The questions that have come up in the Slack boards about digital restoration covers versus original covers, et cetera, et cetera. What the hell do we do with blind bags? I will try to get into all of it because there's a fair amount of territory to go into. Unless you guys want to hear it again, I'm not going to get into scanning of covers because I feel like of all the 245 live streams we've had before this one, I feel like we've covered that one enough. No pun intended. I will be on the other end getting into some interesting Kickstarter projects going on, talking quite a bit about the behind the scenes sausage making of Comic Base itself. And hopefully this is interesting to you folks. But let me know in the chat one way or in another, and we can alter as we go. All right, so let me get into the main part. I got to rearrange a couple of windows here. Just want to make sure that we're still on the air. Yes, we're good on that. Closing Photoshop. All right. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you guys have a sense of humor. Asia Camp says, better not break Carolyn's webcam. If I broke this thing, it would be the greatest mercy killing in the history of webcams. This is a webcam that predates like the webcam surge of COVIDness. It practically predates the HD era. So we'll see. It's not quite one of those ones that you used to get down at the home electronics store that looked like a golf ball mounted on a stand, but it's not far off. But I realized that my good webcam, which isn't the one that I'm broadcasting into right now, is actually left on a computer down in Florida, and it was a little late before the show, before to wonder how to go get it. But at least I did figure out that yes, if I'm broadcasting to you over this camera, I can't actually have it do the same magic with the whole thing without a lot of very elaborate posing on my end. So we're going to see how this works. All right, so let's talk about the basics on the whole thing. So, start with, let me grab first comic book I can reach behind me. So we introduced Camera Find, which is yeah, we're going with the feature Image Find, Find by Image. We tried a lot of things. If you guys like one or the other, but the idea is that if I don't know what the heck comic this is, and this is the Uncanny X Men, who are the outliers, but it's number two, so it's definitely not Uncanny X Men, the original series, which was originally called X Men First Series. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I would have to realistically, if I was gonna find where this thing went in any database, I was gonna have to do one of a couple things. If it's me, I'm probably gonna go reach for my handy dandy barcode scanner, beep the barcode in, and go straight to it. But let's say I didn't have a barcode handy or I didn't want to. The other thing you would typically do is you'd leaf through the thing until you found what's called the indicia, which in this case is about 5 pages in. It's the little tiny type down here, and the bold words at the bottom are incredibly unhelpful. They just say Uncanny X-Men 2, which if I were to look up Uncanny X-Men 2 in ComicBase, I would find out that there's more than one series called Uncanny X-Men 2. At which point, I don't know, maybe if I got the archive edition, I could look through, see if I can find it by its picture. But yeah, it would not be super. Which is why what's really handy is when I can go over here and let's flip over to the demo machine. Um, what I can do instead, let me switch the mouse over so it does this, and let's try the ancient webcam trick. I can go up here under image find, and this is really meta. So bear with me as I adjust to about 4 different cameras and the sheer weirdness of all this. And let's try saying the magic word capture. And oh my god, that actually worked. All right, yes. So one thing I figured out, and let me go and put myself in the frame here for a second. Let's go to where is my board? There was key number one. All right, yeah. So one thing I figured out, and you guys might have caught this one on the last one, is last time I did this on camera, it was crazy complicated trying to align myself, align the comic book, reach over, grab the mouse, look at where the mouse is, look at where the camera is, and the whole thing. Try to hold everything just straight while I move just my right hand to hit the take picture button. It's I'm sure with practice it would be really easy. I'm not a very practiced guy. Realistically, much easier if you're doing this on the phone, because if you pull up camera find out of the Coinbase mobile app, it's a piece of cake. You're holding the camera right in both hands, you just hit tap, good to go. But when you're demoing this on the live stream on a desktop, like I say, there's a lot of moving pieces on the whole thing, and the fact that at least 2 of them are mirror imaged in what you're looking at does not help. So anyway, right after the live stream, everything went wrong. The point where everything goes wrong, I had the live stream where everything goes wrong. I decided I need to simplify my life, and I made a little minor project out of it the next day of saying, what would it take to add voice commands to ComicBase? And as it turned out, not a whole lot. So I actually, if you have a device that's capable of inputting sound, and a web camera is a great example of something like that. You can actually, the very first time you use image camera find, it'll actually say, "Hey, do you want to allow it to record sound?" If you say yes, then it turns on your, during the duration of that dialogue, it turns on your camera's audio input, and it's waiting for you to say the magic word capture. Which, if any of you guys know any Harry Potter spells, something that sounds kind of Latin and cool or something, like captorum. I'm happy to add that one in as an alternate magical spell for the whole thing. Honestly, I think it would be cool. But at the moment, if you just say the word capture, then you are good to go. Yeah, and it got it. Now, I obviously took a pretty bad picture of it. If I'd taken a really good picture of that one, it would have jumped straight to it. But Instead, I got an okay-ish picture of it, and so it was really said, "Well, it's probably one of these 5," and the number 1 choice, which was pre-selected, was indeed the one that it actually was, which was Uncanny X-Men 6th series, number 2. Thankfully, not number 2A, 2A, 2B, 2C, etcetera. I don't even know if we have images for those. I guess we do. No, I don't wanna edit them, I was just download covers, yeah. But yes, that's the one, and actually kind of a neat way to get, get stuff into your database to locate them in the program. So, alright, let's back up the picture now a little bit and say, let me flip over to the main camera here, and I'm now can only look at one camera on one computer. This is like a real load off my mind, it's great. Um, and let's talk about what did it take to make all that happen? So, what what covers look like, right? So they started out back with ComicBase 1.0 is just, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we could have a multimedia database of comic books? And it thought, well, okay, databases typically at that point had a lot of text information about a comic book, but wouldn't it be great if we could also put in pictures? Because we're comic people, we like pictures. It's eye candy. We dig that stuff. And so ComicBase One shipped with a mighty 297 comic images, and they were amazing. They were 512 pixels tall by like 382 wide. Very, very particular size. And why were they that size? Because that was how big they could be and fit on the brand new, newly released Color Mac Color Mac 2 SE. It was it was this is the day when like your Mac 2, if it had a 13-inch monitor, you were like a god amongst men. But for the people who merely want to throw merely like a couple thousand bucks at their computer and didn't have like 3,000 bucks to throw at it, yeah, you had to, the form factor you had to make sure everything fit onto was that of a Mac 2 SE, which the screen size of which was unbelievably pathetic. It was something. I want to say something like 900 pixels by like 700 pixels. So it was something very, very, it was nothing by today's standards. But 512 by 382 was as big as it could be and fit on the screen of the old Mac 2 SE, leaving room for we had to have this gray granite chrome on the original comic base, and so forth. We made it as big as we could get away with, minus the whole thing. Probably 800 by 600 if memory serves, as far as what the actual dimensions of that monitor were. Now, if you had the 13-inch, Mac 2, then you could go all the way up to like 1,000 pixels wide or so. But yeah, you couldn't count on people being that well off. So we were going to make sure for compatibility reasons it fit on that. So that was where we started recording images back the first couple 3 years of ComicBase. Everything was sized down to this tiny, tiny size. And we would record them that way, and if somehow we had a larger image like that, we actually downsized it to be the size that we could ship with ComicBase because we had to make sure that everything would go out in the proper sizes. Now, thank goodness, monitors got bigger, computers got, more capable. We stopped downsizing every image we saw to impossibly small little thumbnails, and then we kind of rolled the clock forward, years and years later. What we do now is every time we get a hold of any comic book, so this comic book, once, I don't know, a week or so ago was on a flatbed scanner being scanned at 300 dots per inch, and saved with, top quality settings in Photoshop, a quality setting 12. What the quality setting on JPEG really means is how far do you want to have it push the JPEG algorithm to save space, and 12 means I don't want to save anything at all. There's not really a sense of JPEG lossless. JPEG is the standard. It stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. That's what the JPEG is for. But they've come up with a rather, brilliant way of encoding images where they more or less figure out that the human eye is not super great at figuring out color tones when they're in blocks right next to each other. So if you were to like measure this thing with some kind of color, I don't know, whatever this color version of a magnifying glass is, colorimeters, I think is what they're actually called. What it would do is it would actually, and you guys have probably seen this if you've ever taken the eyedropper in Photoshop and zoomed in really close to all the different color values of adjacent pixels on something, you'll see that even though it's supposed to be all the same purple, it never really is. It's always off by these little tiny shades. And what JPEG does is it takes advantage of the fact that we can't really tell that stuff apart with our eyes that well. And so, starting with very, very small blocks and growing out to being very much more perceptible blocks, it says, what if we just kind of take these 3 by 3, 4 by 4s, 5 by 5, etc. blocks and kind of average out the colors and treat them as if they're all the same color. And if you do that, you can make something that's really much more tight than what would be a bitmap. A bitmap is just literally every pixel stored in a row times the entire image. So that's the difference between like a bitmap and a JPEG. You'll notice that the bitmap is always larger. Um, but JPEG is what the world standardized when photos and real things came along with. When the web came out, it became the thing that was easily showable on everything. You actually can't show bitmap images natively on the web. The thing that arrived to take the place of bitmaps, BMP images, was a thing called PNGs, portable network graphics. God, thank you, Brainiac. The acronyms came back to me. Now you can have an uncompressed PNG. That is a thing that is now possible. I'm not sure if it was possible in like the very earliest days of Web 1.0, but by the time modern web browsers came out, all of them could do PNGs. The problem is PNGs were huge, right? And back when bandwidth was super expensive, and nobody had fiber connections coming to their houses and everything back in the early web. Remember, it was dial-up. You wanted these graphics to be as small as humanly possible. So people were still compressing the hell out of them. It started out, is you'd have JPEGs that were really pretty, what they call lossy. They'd be dialed up pretty high as far as how far you would squish them down to get them to fit on the small web pages. GIFs or GIFs. I'm not religious about how you're supposed to say that, but GIF, graphic interchange format, I think is what it stands for, was actually would encode the entire thing down to, I believe, 8 bits worth of graphics. So in other words, take this entire cover and say, pick your favorite box of 256 crayons and use those dots to represent every color that's on the screen. That's how a GIF works. Is it limits to that? And I think there was even like a GIF 4 or something like that, where you can say, 256 colors. That's a little luxurious. Maybe we should just do it in 16 colors. But anyway, no one does that nonsense anymore. We have not done this nonsense since the 90s. These days, we all have way more bandwidth, way more fun to play with. And one good decision we made about 15 years ago is we said, all right, look, it may be that we re-release pictures to the world, we have to compress them down different levels and sizes and things like that in order to fit them on discs. But it doesn't mean that our master picture library has to stay compressed. And so probably 15, 20 years ago, we said, look, every time we see a picture, we're going to, hold on to this image in the nicest format we can that's real. So in other words, if it's going to come off the scanner as as a JPEG, we're going to save it. We can't save really uncompressed. I mean, we could, but it's kind of pointless. But we say with JPEG compression of 12, which is to say the littlest that you can do in Photoshop. Usually, if you get into the nuts and bolts of it, the scanner software has done some kind of glorping of the image at some point. It's not transmitting a full raw camera image to you at any point, so that you're not throwing away anything that you care about. And then you get into the mechanics of just there's no sense recording anything higher than 300 DPI for a comic cover because you're you're scanning something that's already been printed, which means that there's already a resolution baked into the printing process itself, and the paper that it prints on. And over 300 DPI, you're really kind of inventing pixels that aren't there. So you're kidding yourself at that point. So, but for the last 15, 20 years, our master picture library has had all the images that we come across in basically 4K, as little compressed as can be, format and so forth. But you guys will notice that that's not what we give to y'all, right? I mean, what kind of bastards are we? Well, the answer is because our master picture library at this point has 1,230,000 and change, images in it, and it takes up about a terabyte on our server disks. Um, we cannot efficiently send you a terabyte of information, even if we really want to. It's not a thing. We would be shipping hard drives with the product, which would be well, let's just say cost prohibitive at this point. But anyway, so what we've been doing is we've been offering, the product in different sizes as you go. So, it used to be if we were, getting like the free or the express versions, we would give you much smaller images and, we'd give them to you, not compressed down as tight as you would think. I mean, we can actually make them fairly non-compressy, but they would start out with a much smaller image. So let's say this big native format. The idea with the archive edition, we always very much wanted to be that the image we gave to you, if you held it up on a standard Windows screen and put it right next to to the comic book itself, that those two things would be very close to each other in size. Now, screens different resolution, 96 DPI is the Windows standard, but it doesn't always hold for everything. Some of you guys have Retina monitors, which are crazy resi and things like that. Your phone probably has like a 400 DPI screen at this point. It's psychotic. But the idea with the archive is that we'd give you an image that was going to be, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 pixels tall. So basically as tall as the actual comic book if you laid it outside on that. And when we had the technology and the Blu-ray could come along, we had the idea of let's try to give it to you. And well, what's 4K resolution amount to? And 4K resolution is nominally 3840 by 1920. Is it just whoever makes up these numbers, they decide that that's what 4K resolution is. There's also these days 8K screens. I think there are 3 people in the world who have them. The demo I've seen for 8K was fantastic. I saw it over at NAB. It was like a 70-inch monitor where they had taken a picture of like the Tokyo Times newspaper with all the kanji fonts and everything like that, and it was laser-like. I mean, the one thing, if you guys ever get like a 4K, Blu-ray, and you want to compare it against your old DVD, and you want to feel really good about, I spent the extra money for the 4K. Most of the time on most people's monitors, it's actually really hard to see the difference due to DVD upscaling algorithms and things like that. But the one thing that always makes you feel like I've spent my money well is when you look at graphics or the credits. The credits are awesome. The FBI warning that comes on at the start of a Blu-ray is like, I've never seen something I don't want to read so sharp. It's brilliant. But on the other hand, animated movies tend to look really, really sharp in 4K. Everything else kind of mushes down, the same way that like our eyes can't really tell the colors of things with any kind of great precision. The same trick that JPEG works on. Honestly, pixels, especially when they're moving, of naturalistic objects. 4K doesn't look a huge amount different than 1080p. They've actually measured, and most people can't reliably tell them apart, which doesn't stop me from buying all my favorite movies in 4K whenever I can. But people are trying to, make 8K a thing, and so far it's going absolutely nowhere for a reason. But so it goes. Yes, I'm getting. Oh, Chris Pearl corrects me. It says 3840 by 2160. Thank you for that. Is the official 4K. Um, and Oro Viejo points out non-compressy, possibly a portmanteau. Yeah, I like it. It'd be funnier if it were shorter, like anti-compression. I don't know, you know, but anyway, we'll take it from there. All right, so we've been storing all the stuff on our back servers at this incredibly, as good a resolution as makes any sense, to hold. We're not making it pixels. We're storing it in a nice format. We can't give it to you guys anything like that format because it won't fit on your discs. So one problem we've had for many, many years when we first started out and a CD came out, it was like, "Oh my goodness, a CD. Do you know how many floppies you could fit onto a CD?" And I used to actually know the number off the top of my head. Um, uh, but it was crazy. It was like 40 or 50 floppies worth of stuff on a single CD. And then a Blu-ray came out, and it was like 6 or 7 times the size of that. And then there were dual layer Blu-rays with almost double the size of that because reasons. Because people decided that 2 times 4.7 is really 8.5 because, again, reasons. Um, and then Blu-ray came out, and when Blu-ray came out, I was so excited because by then we had recorded videos with comic creators and all sorts of other stuff that we really wanted to be able to show, but it was getting really hard to stick onto 1, 2, 3, even 4, archive, 4, dual layer, um, um, DVDs. It was getting hard, but we could stick almost everything onto a single Blu-ray, and we barely have to compress it. It was terrific. And then the years went by, and the number of items in our database went from, I don't know, 100,000, 200,000, up to 500, 600, 700, and now we're at 1.2 million comic covers. Remember, all these ones, as we go back and we see the images again, we scan them much larger than we ever did before. I mean, the first time, I scanned my own comic collection to add it into ComicBase, I was, scanning copies of Strange Tales 135, and I was storing them out at 512 pixels high, which was quite a waste in the in the grand scheme of things. But when you go back to it, suddenly you're storing down a 4K image with that same thing, and yeah, it's going to take more disk space. The problem we've got here, and the problem you guys get whenever you stream a movie off Netflix or Amazon Prime or things like that, is even if the movie is nominally in 4K resolution, if you were watching it, a matter of fact, even a Blu-ray, which is a quarter of the resolution. If you're watching the Blu-ray off of a Blu-ray versus the Blu-ray that comes down off Amazon, it looks way better off the Blu-ray, like enough that even normal non-blind people can usually tell pretty easily. And that's has to do with the level of video compression, where they're dialing that up the same way that we would dial up, JPEG compression for static images. Um, typically, moving picture content is transferred in MP4, typically, or some variant later on of for motion, picture content. But it comes down to the same idea: is that I can compress down the scene. I don't need to make the image quite as sharp in order to make it work. If two images, if I'm gonna have, someone like me talking, my face is largely, if you were to look at this point in my face from frame to frame, there are probably, well, on my face, I'm always doing this, right? But for everybody else, if you were, to monitor that exact point in space from frame to frame, you'd find out there's 50, 60, points where, like, I could say, pick a color for that thing and just repeat the same pixel one after another, in which case you say, I don't need to store 50 pixels to represent that part of the frame. I can store one and say, do it 50 times. And then you wind up with an idea of how motion compression works. And that's how that stuff goes. But anyway, when Blu-ray came out, we suddenly, one thing that was weird about how Blu-ray came out is that the writers for the Blu-rays came out right about the same time the readers came out. And so it was, as soon as it was possible to have a Blu-ray, that you could stick onto your computer, the technology to write a Blu-ray came out like the same time, and they didn't cost, a ton different. I want to say at the time it was maybe $1,000 to get a Blu-ray writer, but we could go and buy a Blu-ray writer the very first day of its, availability to the public. And so then we used that because we knew at that point we already had this huge backlog of images that we couldn't ship in anything like their original format. And so all we could do then is fill up the Blu-ray disc with as many images as fit onto it, compress it as lightly as we can get away with, and still have it fit the disc, which was pretty darn lightly. I want to say that the original Blu-ray version of ComicBase came out at something like 70% compression rate. So down, if 100% is whatever the equivalent of uncompressed is, we were like 70% quality levels. I mean, awfully nice looking images. But once again, the years went by, we got dual layer Blu-rays, and then the technology kind of stopped. There was the thought of UHD Blu-rays. I think that's it's ultra high definition is the type of the format, but I think they were going to call them like BD 100 players and so forth. But the idea was that you're going to be able to stick 100 gigs onto a Blu-ray player. They actually do make those. That's how 4K Blu-rays are authored these days. But that's one when that technology came out, it wasn't easily available to the public. You can get them. The weird thing is the media itself wound up costing like $20 a disc. And so it wasn't worth it. So I mean, if it costs $2 to burn a dual layer Blu-ray, or maybe it was $4 at the time, but it's still 20 to get something that's just a little, just almost twice as much. Um, Everyone just kind of said, "Yeah, I guess I'm done." And then streaming media came out, and people just the whole thing just stopped. So BDXL, I believe, was the format that they were gonna call it. BDXL just it never happened. It years and years went by, it was always gonna be a little bit, later on down the line, and then eventually Sony and all the other guys said, "Yeah, never mind. We're not doing it." And right around the time that 3D TV was collapsing, and so there was never gonna be, like, this whole new flood of, general purpose media. Ironically, 4K, Blu-rays did come out, and I guess to author them, I guess you're willing to burn, $20 for each media blank that you're gonna try it out on, but, because you're gonna then replicate them using, completely different technology, the discs you get at the store are not burned. In other words, they don't just turn on a laser at a higher setting. They're actually, replicated, which is a much more involved manufacturing process, and we get into that another day. But anyway, but so we got capped out at a certain point where we had at some point, I want to say around right around a million images. We had two Blu-rays, dual layers, so about 90 gigs of stuff that we wanted to fit onto them, and it was starting to get to be a real problem of squishing these down and making them fit. First of all, it would take several days just to run the compression pass, to compress down a million images, check them, separate them up by publisher letters, stage them onto the discs, try to fit them in along with all the program content and say, did we hit it or not? Now, you can always compress them way too hard and have them all look like crap and have lots of space to spare, but you want to, compress them as lightly as possible and still get away with it. And usually to dial that in took about a week, 2 weeks sometimes before we would press a new version of ComicBase. Um, then I'm going to say probably last year, year before maybe, we just got to a point where, like, we're looking at it, and unless you're halfway blind, you would look at the images that are coming off of even the Blu-rays when we started having 1.2 million images on them, and there's certain types of image, like, for instance, when you have a color gradient, large, flat fields of, like, a purple or something like that, especially if they're gonna make the purple sliding into blue or something like that, they would just get blotchy. And yeah, you get the picture. Yes, it's at the required resolution, but it's full of so many JPEG and artifacts that it kind of gets rid of the purpose of having, this really deluxe edition, right? I mean, what's the point of having, the nicest version of Comic Base if the images that come off the disc kind of look like ass? So we had a year or two earlier, before it got really bad on that, we'd gotten smart about one thing. A customer actually had written in and he said, like, look, I mean, when I get your product, I spend hours copying the stuff onto my disk. It takes, hundreds of of gigabytes in order to say, hold it all. And it's kind of a pain in the ass. And isn't there another way? And we thought about it for a while, thought, well, you know, what's changed over the years? And we thought, well, average network speeds have really come up. It used to be we'd always have some customer who's out in like rural Montana or something who'd be like, "Yeah, I dial up to get my uplink speed. My downlink speed is like 1.2 megabits or something like that. But then when it's storming, it drops down to the kilobits." And so you always had to worry about that guy. And on the other hand, you'd have some guy who's connected to like Austin, Texas, downtown by the university, and be like, "Yeah, I'm rocking a 2 gigabit fiber line," and they're like, and those two people, you always had to kind of steer kind of a little bit of a middle path between them. But at a certain point, it got to be that even our customers out in Montana were having, kind of decent internet connections, like, they could actually play Netflix movies and things like that. And so it occurred to us, what if we did something kind of halfway cleverish? Where what we'll do here is it's almost like a return to the original comic base, is we'll start out with really small thumbnails of everything, all 1.2 million images, but we'll make them, big enough so that, like, at the highest setting of the grid, you're seeing a nice pretty picture, but that's all you get on that one. But then the second you touch it, the second you interact with that picture at all, it's gonna, instantly download the high res version of that one straight from our servers. And because we don't have to fit that sort of thing onto any particular size disk, suddenly I don't have to serve these up at like an 18% quality rating. I can serve them up at 50, 60%, and they're going to look freaking terrific. I mean, they're going to look almost indistinguishable from what we've got on our back end servers. But because we know mathematically, you're never going to interact with anything but a tiny fraction of the overall image library, it won't take a terabyte of space on your disk in order to hold these beautiful images. You'll have the small versions, which because they're small, we take up, if you took the all 1.2 million of the images, it takes something like 12 gigabytes, which, it's not the lightest thing in the world. It's a heavy download the first time you download it. But that's it, and you're done. But then as you download new covers or you actually click on issues of things that you collect and things like that, it takes a fraction of a second to pull down the really nice version of it, and even if you took everything that you ever interact with ever, I wanna say the highest I've ever seen a customer have, was something like 40, 50 gigs of imagery, so far less than it would have been if they'd installed even, like, the bad version of the archive edition from years ago, and the images that they did download were all the nice ones, so that's the quick start, thing, and that's, actually the long lead up into what we changed this last week. So really, really like the quick start thing. It's the whole idea is that the second you interact with something, it comes down and it's pretty and we when we dig it. And let me just make sure that I've got that turned on the demo machine because otherwise that's going to make me look really foolish. Um, no, actually, I think I'm either. Sorry, let me just do a little bit of configuration over on the demo machine. That's one thing I did not get a chance to do before the show. Um, da, 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 da. Okay, yeah. So there's a preference setting in ComicBase. If you go under Setup and you go to Preferences, automatically download larger pictures. So if it knows that there is a larger picture in the world, it will go out and automatically try to grab it whenever one's available. And so that if you've got that going on, you know, then you have this automatic upgrading of all of your quick start pictures and your life is golden. So you get the best of both worlds, really. You get high quality pictures without having it take all the space in the world to get that thing done. So that's what we're doing, but we have a problem. And the problem we've got is remember I said it used to take, you know, weeks of staging, all the pictures before we, put out a new update. We still had a problem where if we're going to stage the quick start archives. Now, we have to get 1.2 million pictures ready, and we can kind of do some smart things by saying, well, which ones changed from week to week and only worry about adding in those new ones. But oh, some people have upgraded some older pictures, and some people said, oh, this is kind of a bad picture. Let's replace with this other one, stuff like that. So it does take quite a bit of time still to just chew through all the pictures in ComicBase and say, all right, let's bundle them up for the quick start. And I gotta admit, we get busy. So what would happen is from week to week, we would, go and put out the update. It would have, 4,000 new pictures that would come down with your weekly downloads of everything. And that would be great so far as it went. But if you were installing Comic Base new off the machine, it kind of became a question like, well, when's the last time the Comic Base people got around to refreshing the base quick start archives? And the answer would be something like, it's been a couple months, hasn't it? Yeah, we should get right on that. And then we'd have to dedicate a machine to go grind for a day and stuff like that. And then there's a very elaborate packaging process and it was horrible. Now, we did make some parts of that better over the years, but I gotta admit the process of bundling it all up was still enough of a pain in the butt that it didn't get done all that often. It did not run like like clockwork every week like I wished it would. I think the best we ever did is, I don't know, every 3, 4 weeks maybe. But then this brings us back to our original problem here. So we've got this thing here. This thing might have come into the database a couple of weeks ago. Here's Absolute Catwoman. It's on my desk here. You notice I did not demo Absolute Catwoman as one of the image recognition thing that's on here. Because why? Because I haven't scanned it yet. This thing's getting scanned sometime. I mean, the lunar packages just hit our offices about 2 hours ago. This thing just got unboxed. It's going to get carried over to a scanner sometime either tonight or tomorrow morning. At which point I can push it into the update. At which point I can then run the job that adds it to the picture archive that allows you to recognize pictures. But until our servers have seen this picture and they've had a chance to grind through it and code it and make kind of like the secret key that equates to absolute Catwoman number 3 variation A, until they've had a chance to do that one, if you took your copy of absolute Catwoman 3A, you're probably not going to get very far with it. I mean, if we're lucky, DC sent us a preliminary image. You'll see that we mark those on the side there with preliminary art. If we're lucky, the art that they used for this, it looks something like the real cover, and it's something closer to that than other things. It almost never has the full trade dress. It almost never carries the barcode. But if we're lucky, the image is sufficiently close that maybe it gets recognized ahead of time, but probably until we've actually added it to the content update, it probably is not image recognized. Well, we just introduced this hot new feature. We want it to work for people. We want you to enter your comics, the whole thing. And honestly, you're probably interested in entering your comics with it the same week we are. So what do we do? And the answer is we had to get really serious about how we get comics into the database. We gotta make sure they get added every single time. So this last week, you say, why wasn't there a show last week? Because we were doing this. And what we were doing is we were making sure that every time we push a content update, that one of the last things it does is part of that content update is it goes through and rebuilds the archive of all the picture recognition images with all the ones that we just added. So it updates the picture listings for anything new that we just pushed. In a typical week, that's 4 or 5 thousand items. And then the other thing that it does is it goes and it kicks off a job right at the end, right at the point when I'm sitting there going, "Phew, so glad the week is over. I can now grab a beer." And right at the point where it says grab beer, it kicks off a big packaging job, which takes all the images, makes a copy, and so it can work on them so without messing you guys up. But what it's going to do then is it goes and creates brand new quick start image archives of everything, so that if you're the guy who discovered ComicBase or you're downloading onto a new machine that week or whatever else, your quick start archive is going to include every single thing that was in the database as of that week's content update, and that we roll that forward and we do it every single week. So that was the big behind the scenes listings of how that all went. Now, some questions on the whole thing. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. Oro says, so there's a second 1 terabyte server with all the covers for Comic Base search feature. Why is that, please? Curious. It's funny. We have our master, product, archive, our art library is about terabyte for the master art. It's on a Dropbox. So yeah, we're one of those guys who pays for the big subscriptions on Dropbox. And that's one of the few things that's shared between our web servers and our database servers. What happens on the web servers is the web servers actually, they've got access to the original image, but then they go and they create pre-computed, and they do it on demand. So anytime anyone asks for an image at a particular size, they say, well, do I have, like, for instance, do I have this at thumbnail size yet? Do I have this at the size that Atomic Avenue uses for hero graphics? The ones that if I were to go to Absolute Catwoman and look at the main page of that, do I have it at that size yet? Do I have it the size that we use for printing yet? Do I have it the size that we use for archive downloads? Do we have it the size we use for 4K archive downloads? And anytime the answer is no, it goes and makes that thumbnail right then and there and stores it in a special place where it can get to it right away very quickly. And so we don't just have the 1.2 million images, we have them times about 7 different sizes that we use for different things. So, and they all come pre-computed and pre-compressed for all the different things that are going to look at them. So everything from your mobile phone, the grids that scroll by on your mobile phone, all those things have to, you don't want to you don't want to start from the huge image and then go down every time. You want to have that already pre-computed at the smaller size ready to go, because you want all the grids and all the everything to be as fast as they possibly can, so all that works smoothly. So that's what the web server is running from. The database server has got access to the main library, but what it does is it actually creates, it's not the images themselves, but it's kind of like a codex of the images. It kind of figures out that, okay, can we compute just like and it's very much the way that, like, SoundCloud, well, not SoundCloud, but like Spotify, not bleh, that thing that finds the picture, the songs that which I'm thinking of every music service under the sun right now, except the one I'm thinking of. but it's the one where you can, hold your, your phone up when they're playing a really cool song in the cafe you're at, and it will automatically tell you, what song it is. The whose name of it I'm completely blanking on right now. But anyway, what it does is it pre-computes essentially a signature for the cover, and when you go and you are holding this comic book up to your scanner, it's taking probably a pretty crummy picture of the whole thing, along with a whole bunch of background foo, my shirt, and glares off the cover and things like that. It downsizes that, pre-computes its signature, and then compares for essentially signature match alignment with the one that we've already got. So we're actually trading a fairly small amount of data to figure out, is this the same key as one of the keys we've already got? And that's why we can do the match in under a second. With really decent success rate, even off of some pretty crummy pictures. But that's how that all works. But the main thing is we need to be able to update that key store every single time that we go and do things. And whether Shazam, thank you very much. Uh, but also like things like, the presence or absence of a barcode or the trade dress, or whether it's the preliminary art down the side. All those things are going to mess with how good that key match is. So it's often, sometimes you can still get a match off of it, even though it doesn't exactly match from a mathematical standpoint because of how we do the comparison. But honestly, the closer we can get to showing a decent picture of the real thing and computing our master key off of that, then when you take your crummy scan of this and put up the whole thing, we have a better chance of having the two things come together. And so, but for that to work at all, we have to be really timely about how we make the whole thing work. And so we put some work into that, I guess, is what it comes down to. Um, let's see here. I has one in place. I missed something. Just looking in the chat. Let me see if I can scroll back a little bit here. Come on, there's my mouse. And let's see here. Anyone else sound going out? No, okay, no sounds. I guess I hit a microphone or something. I hopefully everything's good. Richard Sky asks, hey, ComicBase TV, Kaiki's someone's already uploaded an image for an issue. I've repeatedly gotten to an entry, I'll only find no cover image by the time I scan attempt to upload a cover. If so, typically, if you have got, so I mean, let's take, there's a couple of questions here. First of all, there's the question of like, has anyone already uploaded a good image of absolute, Catwoman, issue number 3? If you know for sure what the whole thing's called and you're scanning an issue, and you submit it as a correction, if you've got an image for it and we don't have an image, we do a little quick check and we say, well, do we have that cover? And do you have that cover? And you will get a little prompt when you submit data to us. If we don't have the cover, it says, hey, we noticed you had a cover. Could we, would you mind sending that to us? And if so, you send to us, it gives you a point for having sent us the image and everything. But what we're looking for then is purely, is your cover bigger than our cover? And did we have the cover at all? If the answer is, yeah, your cover's bigger, then your cover will win. Let's say we had a cover, but it was a small cover. If your cover's bigger, you still win. If our cover's bigger, it's not going to ask you. It's just going to say, hey, thanks for this correction, and it won't ask anything about setting it up. One thing that could happen, and we get this one especially around like things like comics giveaway, items, things that are ambiguously labeled, is they might be in the database already under a different name, is one thing, in which case barcode honestly is the best initial sorting vehicle for that one, because typically barcodes are unique, even if the title is weird. But the other thing about it is it might be up, but like let's say Absolute Catwoman, until this week's update posts, this thing will not be in the database. So if you were to submit it right now, it would say, hey, can we have that copy of Catwoman? And then when I go to scan it and add it myself, my scanner's probably resier than the average scanner that's going to come up. But yes, there is definitely times when I'm doing the indexing work, and it comes up that, oh yeah, I just went and scanned that, but someone already sent in a picture that's at least as nice as the one we've got. In which case, I say thank you, and I take your picture and I throw out the one I just scanned. That's kind of the only way to go on that one. Every once in a while, the nightmare scenario is when you get something that's very, very ambiguously titled, like Midnight. Marvel just did a midnight thing. Where is it? Here we are. So this is the Midnight Universe black and white ash can. So if you look at it in ComicBase right now, it actually is up there, and it does have a barcode in the back, which does help. But I know, for instance, I got it submitted by multiple people today as Midnight Universe #1. No, it's not. It's Ash 1 or maybe 1 Ash. Um, but if you do a look by barcode, is usually the easiest way to say, is it already in the database or not? And when you do scan things, please try and make sure that put the um, your picture in according to whatever we called it. Otherwise, it's fine, but we can't use it. Is what it comes down to. All right. So is your cover bigger than my cover? No, it's not. It's not a. The only thing we're measuring is pixels. People, be adults. All right. Um, all right. And yes, peace microphones censored when I'm speaking to it directly or not. Yes, that is definitely true. If I'm reaching back over my shoulder and doing things like that, then the microphone goes all to hell. So that is a thing that goes on. All right, let's move on because I think we've covered this one about as well as it makes any sense to do at this point. So going back, so hopefully that gives you guys an idea for what the process looks like for us. Honestly, had the Lunar books come in yesterday when they were meant to have come in. Typically, Lunar will hit us on Wednesdays. Penguin hits us anytime from Wednesday to Friday. But honestly, I've grown to I've kind of gotten to the point where I won't wait for the Penguin books. If they don't hit us by the time we're ready with every other thing on the world, by the time we've handled every other correction, by the time we've done all the other things, if they're not ready by then, I move on. And we hit them with the next update because life is too short. You've got to be able to move on sometimes. But Lunar did not come in yesterday for reasons no one knows why. So they came in today, and because they came in quite late compared to when I had to have the live stream done, these guys aren't going out until tomorrow. They will be part of the update, and who knows, Penguin might be with them by then. But at that point, I will be pushing the update. I will be running that big content update thingy that grinds all the stuff, syncs everything up to the servers, puts all the pictures up there, preps all the downloads for all you guys out there, rebuilds the brag boxes and the lists of things that you guys can use for image recognition. The second that goes live, you can image recognize them whether you've downloaded the update or not. But our servers need to know what they look like. Until our servers know what they look like, yeah, we don't know. But like I say, importantly these days, and now we also are going to have the quick start archives will be updated as well in real time. So that's a good thing. All right. So, and why is my okay? There we go. Okay, sorry. I was trying to look at the content, and for some reason, the StreamYard was getting stuck on my cover is always bigger. I don't know. All right. Rob asks, still considering download all without prelims option, not supported currently. Um, Let me think on it. I got to admit, what we've been doing is so complicated. I hadn't thought, let's have a new way to make the download process more complicated for us. But I do hear you. There are some people who just hate prelims. And if you download and you said, you know, I want all the things, but I don't want prelims. Yeah, I don't know. When you download, just as part of the regular cover downloads, it will respect your settings under preferences as to whether or not you want to allow prelims to be part of it. But as I'm sure you're aware, it's always been a challenge. One thing that's always fun is they keep on changing the sizes of prelims. So we right now, I think publishers are giving them to us in like about 4 different sizes right now. So we're trying awfully hard to distinguish even what is a preliminary arc. We actually stamp it inside the metadata of the comic itself at this point, but it is challenging. All right, and let me see here. Okay, so and I'm not even gonna get into the crap talk that's going on in the forum right now. All right, moving on. Okay, so other things I wanna get to before we run out of time on this one. First of all, let's go back to the Show-O-Matic. These are our stats from the previous, our last week's update. It's 26,853 new items. I'll be breaking that down in a minute. The number's gonna get a little bit squishy on this one because we're kind of mixing and matching, like 1.5 different updates with some stats I'm gonna give you on this one because I had to push the update twice last time, so it mangled a few of my numbers. 78,447 price and issue updates, typically prices, but a lot of corrections came in through that. Added, we're kind of slacking, only 2,010 new covers. At the time of last week's update, we were at 1.229 949 total covers. I know at this point we're well over, well over the next digit on that one. And we're running just below 1.5 million comic books. I'm excited. I'm pretty sure we're going to kick that one over in a next month or two tops and reach the 1.5 million item mark on that one. The rate we're going, we're probably also going to blow past the 6 million total item count on the whole thing. So a little bit of breakdown on some interesting things that came up. Let me bring this one onto the screen. So 1 week of corrections, and I want to give this one a little bit of love because this one deserves a little bit of a shout out here. So I want to say hey to Frank Colasurdo. 20,000 of the corrections that came in, 22,000 corrections total this year. 20,065 of them were on the Liverpool Echo alone. Yes, we are getting a whole publishing history of an English newspapers whose history stretches back to the 1800s. But he's currently submitting the stuff from the wartime eras between World War I and II. I think he just rounded into the 50s, or as close to. But yes, as we put it, this is one man in a newspaper archive in single combat. So shout out to Frank. You've done an amazing job this week. Thank you very much for that. For the rest of the leaderboard of corrections this week, Brian Stewart, 2,638 corrections. Bob Wood out there, 2,044. A lot of cool foreign titles from Bob, by the way. Guru Do, I do not know the name, and Spike, I believe that's Robbie. A lot of great research there on page counts and DC covers and things like that. So thank you to everyone who committed on that whole thing. Because of Frank's work on the whole thing, newspapers dominated the total counts for this last week of what we've processed. But also saw a lot of fill-ins of things like TV guides and a lot of neat stuff like that, as well as some really cool sci-fi books, a lot of Star Trek novels and so forth. And at the time earlier on today, when I filled in this stat, there were 0 pending. It was a beautiful moment. But yes, I actually have a little control console up on my thing, which tells me how many corrections I have pending. And let me go and flip over to it. During the time I've been talking, only 24 have come in. But yes, when I sat down to my work today, I was staring at a number like 5,600 or something of corrections to deal with just overnight. So thank you to everyone who made that happen. That I said it before, but we could not be doing this without you guys. All right. Some other things I want to bring your attention to, which are just kind of cool. So let me see if I can bring this. Oh, I'm sorry. I did want to put this one up on the screen because I took all the trouble of making a cool graphic for it. So let me show you this one. Um, in addition to all sorts of stuff from Liverpool, yes, Comics Without Borders, we got a lot of cool stuff in here. Colana Freccia. Good Lord, I can't say this here. We've got French stuff, we've got Italian stuff. We have so much cool stuff that came in this last week, and I even learned a brand new word. Apparently, the type of comic books that are they're almost like a strip. They're published in the same format as you would a comic strip, but they're a horizontal reading comic book. I believe they're called a strecchia in Italian. But you see this Italian comics, seen some Brazilian and Portuguese comics like that as well. Very, typically newspaper strip reprints, very difficult to find. And good Lord, if you know a good way of bagging and boarding these, you are well out ahead of me. So that is a cool thing. Oh, and, La Pantera Rosa, which, you guys are thinking, Pantera, the band, and that, of course, is Panther. Pantera Rosa is Pink Panther, Italian, and Rupazeta Tasculeti, or Rupazeta Tasculeti. Somebody will tell me this one, but yes, this, I believe, is Brian in there, representing the Finnish Donald Ducks, and let's also not forget about Finnish Winnie the Pooh, which is Nalle Pooh. So anyway, cool stuff. A lot of neat stuff came into the database this year, this week alone, and thank you to everyone who made that happen. Because just neat stuff. All right, other things that are kind of cool, which I wanted to bring up, there's some interesting Kickstarters going on right now. Hellboy, Going Back to Hell. He's of course doing this one. It's a big Kickstarter with a whole bunch of variants, which yes, someone here will be scanning those. Um, but Mike Mignola is putting those out there. He didn't think he was going to revisit Hellboy's time in hell, but he's doing that, and he invited friends along. So there are other people who are drawing Hellboy in this one for the first time. So worth checking out if you guys want to on Kickstarter. But I'm gonna say the Kickstarter of the week is kind of in theme with what we're doing here. And let me see if I could get that graphic up. Come on, where'd you go? Too many windows open on computer. Where is it? All right, here we go. Yes, here we are. All right, if you guys want in on this one, you have about 2 hours left. But, Jim Lee, and the numbers here were current as of about 2 hours ago, so it's probably higher now. Let me go ahead and check it live. I had the page open. Let me see if I can get it over on the demo machine here. Switch over, go down to Brave. Oh, yes. All right. So this is the Marvel Artist Archive, Jim Lee. Let's refresh. Holy crap! I like the little effect they do there, where they show the numbers ticking up. Yeah, he's made about 10 grand since I've been talking. 3,092 backers. He's hit something like 20 times his goal. You got 2 hours left to get in on it. But this is Jim Lee's compilation of his own covers. It is, of course, being done with multiple editions. It's really slick looking hardcover book. But of course, you can get it with the dual-sided dust jacket. That's nice to hear. See, I do like that this is a reversible cover, so he's not just selling you two different covers of the same thing. You can flip the dust jacket over if you want to see the heroes or the villains. So that's a cool thing. But one thing I really dig about this one, and yes, there are metal foil slip cases and all sorts of other cool things here. But he decided I'm going to go and make mini covers, and if you buy in at some of the larger tiers, it'll give you like a little tiny set of these four covers, and I do appreciate the hand there for scale, because that's it's honestly pretty damn necessary. um, but you can buy them, and in different collections you can actually get whole sets of these little mini covers. So, well, what do I do with huge sets of little mini covers? Well, the answer, of course, is he's offering you, for an initial $9 each, mini cover storage bags. And if you guys aren't getting this, there's two different versions available for them. There's the I believe the hero and the villain versions, but they are 3.8 inches tall by 5 4/3 inches long and 2.67 inches wide. So basically, the little collection of little tiny covers you've got there can be stored in your little tiny box. And so you can have just the entire thing. It's covers all the way down. They have portfolio versions of the covers. You could put those in with the slipcase versions of the covers. You can get stickers of the covers, and yeah, it's all about the covers. I think that's all I've got to say about that one. But if you're interested at all, you can even order a retail pack on these ones to Supplier Store, and I think if you do that, you get it like half off. But yeah, I think he's probably gonna. If he doesn't hit half a mil on this one, he's going to get awfully close. Let me refresh the page again. I'm seeing it ticking up. Yeah, he's 11th thou away from hitting half a mil, and yeah, so that is the show for today. So, all right, guys, thank you for coming out, and I think next time out we'll talk about something other than covers, maybe even getting the labels again. But thank you for joining us, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.